I have 23 travel updates and travel tips that you need to know before you travel this year. Global tourism for 2023 is estimated to be about 95% of what the levels were in 2019 before the world, well, stopped for a little bit. Everyone is ready to be out there traveling the globe again, and the numbers reflect that. With so many more people traveling and with all of the issues that the airports and airlines had last year, I have some very important travel tips for you that will hopefully help you have a much less stressful adventure. Throughout this video, I am going to be referring to some websites and videos and apps that you might want to use as resources. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but I'm going to have all of those items linked below in the description that you can check out after this video. And you are going to want to stick around until the end because I've saved what is probably my favorite tip and one that not a lot of people know about for last. I know, I'm such a tease. Let's jump right in and get started with tip number 1, which is all about passport renewals. If you are traveling abroad this year and you are from the United States, you need to make sure that your passport meets the requirements for the country that you are going to. There are many countries that require your passport to be still valid 3 to 6 months after the trip that you are taking to that destination. If your passport is going to expire before those 3 or 6 months are over, you need to actually get that passport renewed. And unfortunately, they are having record numbers of passport applications and renewals coming in right now. As of March 23rd, and I'm publishing this video on Easter Sunday, so it's only a couple of weeks behind. As of March 23rd, it was taking 10 to 13 weeks to process a passport. That's not counting the time to mail the information into the passport office or for that passport to get mailed back to you. That means it is taking over 3 months for someone to get a passport renewed or a new passport issued. If you are trying to expedite that service, it's still taking 7 to 9 weeks for that to get processed. So we're talking almost 2 months, if not over 2 months, to get your passport expedited. You need to keep that in mind if you are planning to travel this summer overseas to somewhere that does require you to have an extended period on your passport when you arrive. Number 2 is all about TSA PreCheck and global entry. Perhaps you've seen how quickly those lines go at the airport if you are part of the trusted traveler system. Well, if you want to get your TSA PreCheck or your global entry before you go travel this summer, it's kind of backed up too. I do believe the TSA PreCheck is not as backed up as the global entry. The issue with the global entry is that you do have to go through an interview in order to get that issued to you. And those interview appointments are sometimes backed up to 6 months. So it could take you, even after you've gotten your application sent in, you could be delayed anywhere from 4 to 6 months before you can get in to do that interview and then have your global entry delivered to you. You want to check and see if that is something that you can do. I've done a whole video on the differences between TSA PreCheck and global entry and the processes of getting them. So that will be one of the things linked below if you want more information about those programs. And on to number 3. While we are talking about stuff that you need to research for traveling overseas, you need to check out your visa requirements for those countries. Even though there are many, many, many countries that a US citizen can go to without needing a visa, there are several that you still do need visas for. So you don't want to be caught unawares that is something that you would need to apply for and maybe pay for before you go on your trip. And that leads us into tip number 4, which is all about checking your vaccination and COVID protocols for going into a country. I am going to Japan in August, and honestly, because we've become so relaxed here in the United States, I didn't even think about needing to maybe have another vaccination or needing to do a PCR test before I go to Japan during the summer. Now, granted, some of these protocols will change or may change, and they could change in either direction. Just, we don't know what might happen. But you need to make sure that you are doing your research. So again, you don't get to the airport and find out that you needed to get a PCR test the day before you can even get on the plane, or that you needed to have another booster shot. Do that research, and don't just research it once. That is something that you should probably check maybe every couple of weeks leading up to your trip. And while we're continuing on talking about international travel, especially for those of us in the United States, I would encourage you to enroll in the STEP program, which is the State Department's Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. What this does is it allows the embassy to be able to send you text if there's issues that you need to be aware of while you're traveling through the country. It also allows the embassy to be able to text you and assist you if for some reason there's a natural disaster or perhaps a civil unrest occurs while you are traveling. In addition, it is also a really good way for your friends and family to get in touch with you while you're traveling in the country if there is an emergency. Tip number 6, while we're talking about the State Department, you should also check their website to see what the advisory level is for the country that you are traveling to. They can change fairly quickly. So again, it's something like the COVID protocols or vaccination protocols. You should maybe check at least every couple of weeks leading up to your trip, just to make sure something hasn't happened that you need to be aware of for your own safety. And while we're talking about safety, let's move on to tip number 7, and that is travel insurance. In the past, I've been kind of 50-50 about travel insurance as to whether you should get it or whether you should not. Given all of the issues the airlines and airports had last year, this is a year that I think that you should probably do your research and consider getting travel insurance. I know that I'm going to get it for the trips that I am taking this year. In fact, I'm contemplating actually getting an annual plan for myself. I do have a link to a kind of clearinghouse for travel insurance. It is below that you can go in and put in the parameters of your trip, and it will give you some great options that you could choose from. I've also done a whole other video all about travel insurance that I'll have linked below as well. Tip number 8 is all about controlled substances and medication. While we have some things here in the United States that are over the counter or even prescription drugs that are legal here, there are a lot of countries that some of these items are not legal. And some of these things are like ADHD medication. So you want to do some research. If you are on a medication that you definitely need to continue to take, or maybe a family member needs to be able to continue to take while they're traveling, do your research of the countries that you're going to make sure that you're following the steps that you need to in order to bring that medication in with you. And, we've got multiple states now in the United States where marijuana is legal. So if you happen to be a casual user and maybe you have some gummies that help you sleep at night, you know how that is. You'll want to make sure that those are taken out of your luggage before you travel overseas, because we don't want you going to jail. That would not be fun. And you know what else isn't fun? Is arriving to the airport and finding out that your checked bag or your carry-on bag doesn't meet the dimensions or the weight requirements for that airline, and you now have to pay extra for that baggage. There have been so many changes with airlines on their baggage weights and their baggage sizes. You definitely need to take a look and make sure that what you are planning to travel with fits within those parameters. And if you're traveling from the United States overseas, and then while you're overseas, you're going to take a foreign airline to travel around, you want to make sure that you've checked that foreign airline, because they are way more strict than the US airlines are. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever you take meets the parameters for not only your United States flights, but also your overseas flights. I have a link below that goes to a website that has most airlines listed out and what their weights and sizes requirements are. There are some US carriers that have also changed their checked baggage weights, so you want to make sure you check that as well. It's no longer a straight out 50 pounds. There are some airlines that have lowered it to 40 pounds. And I'm looking at you, Frontier. One way to make sure that you are on top of what those baggage sizes and weight requirements are is to download your airline's app. I would download all of the airline apps that you are going to be using on your travels. Not only will you have the information about what you can bring on that airline, but you will also be updated pretty quickly on whether there are any changes to your gates, whether there are any delays or cancellations of your flight, and that'll allow you to get online to make any changes that you need to a lot faster than, say, somebody who doesn't have the app. The next couple of tips I have pertain to going through airport security, specifically in the US and dealing with the TSA. Tip number 11 is if you are unsure about whether something can come through airport security, TSA has made it super, super easy to be able to ask them if that product can go through or not. You can go to tsa.gov and they have a little box where they say Ask TSA and you can put it in there. You can also go to the Ask TSA Facebook page and you can just ask them straight on the Facebook page, and the same thing with Ask TSA Twitter account. So all three of those are super easy to go to and ask TSA whether something is able to be brought through airport security or not. And they do answer you pretty quickly, usually within 24 to 36 hours. So as long as you give them a little bit of time ahead, they should be able to get back to you and let you know. I would suggest that whatever answer you get back from them on whatever platform you ask them, to take a picture of that, a screenshot of that, or a picture on your phone so that you can take it with you just in case the TSA agent or officer at your airport isn't quite as up to par on the rules as the person is who is answering that question for you online. And tip number 12 is all about the TSA Cares program. This program was started a few years ago, but relatively few people actually know about it. And again, I did a whole video about the TSA Cares program and the Sunflower program, which is international. TSA Cares is only for the United States. The Cares program is specifically for anybody who might need special assistance going through airport security. And this is anything from being pregnant to having a broken leg, to having a pacemaker in, or needing to carry a CPAP machine. There are very minor special needs that the TSA will allow you to go through the CARES program. And if you want more information on that, like I said, I did a full video on it, and I'll have all of that linked below so that you can check it out if you need to. And number 13 is a little old school, but still super important in this digital age. And that is to make sure you have both a digital copy and a hard copy of all of your important travel documents. This includes your passport, your travel insurance, your travel itinerary, emergency contact information, all of those things. I would say that you need to have a copy of it in the cloud somewhere so you can access it even if your phone gets stolen. Maybe have pictures of it in a folder on your phone, and especially make sure that somebody that is staying at home has a hard copy and a digital copy so that you can reach out to them if you do need that information. I did a whole video on all the things that you need to do before you leave your house for a trip, and that is one of them, among others. And yep, you guessed it, like all the other things, it'll be linked below. Let's talk about some tips that can help you with the dreaded lost luggage issue, because oh boy, was last year just a horrible, horrible year for lost luggage. What a conundrum. So tip number 14 is to invest in some Apple AirTags or tiles to put in your luggage, and maybe other things that in case they get stolen, you would be able to track them down. Somebody has suggested putting it in their passport case. Another person suggested putting it in their wallet, or if they have like a wallet on their phone, like I do, putting it in there in case your phone gets stolen. Invest in a few, but specifically in this circumstance, I'm talking about putting it in your luggage, and you're going to want them for both your checked luggage and your carry-on luggage. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Not only do you need to put trackers in your luggage, but number 15 is that you need to take a picture of your suitcase. Again, both your checked luggage and your carry-on luggage. You should also take pictures of what is packed inside of those suitcases, especially if you are carrying things like cameras, computers, and anything else that is expensive. Because if you have pictures of those items packed in those bags, it's a lot easier to make your insurance claim, especially if those things go missing for weeks on end, like some luggage did last year. Tip number 16 is to pack efficiently for airport security. Now, I know airport security, the only thing consistent about airport security is the inconsistency. You may have to take out your liquids bag. You may not have to take out your liquids bag. You may have to take out your electronics. You may not have to take out your electronics. You may have to take out your food. You may not have to take out your food. You see where I'm going with this, right? But it is better to be prepared that you will have to take everything out. So just pack your carry-on luggage and your personal item with the idea that you are going to have to take all the things out when you go through security. And that way, if you don't have to take it out, then yay, you didn't have to take it out. And you can rearrange things once you get on the other side of airport security. But in the meantime, if you pack efficiently, that means you get through security faster and the people behind you get through airport security faster. Again, I've done a video, granted it's a little bit of an old video at this point, all about packing to get through airport security that it'll be below. Something that is happening at airport security in some locations, but not all, because they are slowly rolling out new equipment at different airports. And this is tip number 17, is that you might be able to use your digital ID when you go through security. I believe it is currently only at TSA PreCheck lines, and it is the ID that you can save like in your Apple ID wallet. So that way you wouldn't have to take out your ID or your passport to show them when you go through security. Now, one thing that I noticed when I was going through security, and it wasn't at the Portland airport, wasn't like this, but at the Raleigh-Durham airport, all I needed to show when I got to the security line was my ID. They did not need to see my boarding pass. They were able to pull up my boarding pass when I showed them my ID. So that is something that might also happen. You may not need to show your boarding pass. Again, I refer back to what I just said, that the only thing consistent is the inconsistency. You might want to check and see if you can use your digital ID, but you will still need to have an ID on you, either your driver's license or your passport, whatever you are using at the time. And for number 18, when I was talking about needing a tracker for your carry-on bag earlier, it's because of this tip. You need to be prepared that your carry-on suitcase might get checked. Even if you are not one of the last people to board your plane, the overhead bin compartments run out of space really, really quickly. So you need to be prepared that you might have to check your carry-on. Now, they won't charge you for having to check your carry-on once you're at the gate. That your carry-on will be checked all the way through to your destination for no charge. But you might need to let it go, which means that you need to have a tracker in there in case it gets lost. You also need to pull out any medication that you might need for your trip. And thirdly, you will need to pull out anything that has a lithium battery that is in your carry-on bag. So your portable chargers or anything else that might have that lithium battery in there, because you cannot have a lithium battery in the belly of the airplane, which is where all of the checked bags go. I think for some reason they have a way of putting out the fires that those lithium batteries start easier inside the cabin than they do underneath the belly. And I think it probably has something to do with oxygen. But that's science.
Science?
We'll let a scientist answer that question. Just be prepared if you have to check your carry-on bag to be able to pull those things out of your carry-on bag that you do need with you, and those things that aren't allowed to be in checked baggage. You might also want to pull a couple of pieces of clothing out. In fact, I would encourage you, and this is a bonus tip. I didn't have this as one of my 23, but for this year, long time ago, when I first started traveling 40 years ago, I would always pack an extra pair of clothes, pair of shorts, a top, bathing suit, definitely always a bathing suit if I was going somewhere warm. I would have that in my personal item bag on the airplane just in case my luggage got lost, because I guess it got lost a lot a lot more often back then. But now, because of all the issues they had last year, I would say to start packing an extra set of clothes with you in your personal bag too. So maybe take one of those compression bags, put a top, a pair of shorts, or a pair of joggers or something lightweight in there, an extra pair of underwear, and maybe a sweater or sweatshirt, and have that in that compression bag and be able to fit it somewhere in your personal item bag, especially if your carry-on bag ends up getting checked. Moving on to 19, I just kind of touched on this a few minutes ago, talking about the lithium batteries. There was a recall on one of the portable chargers that Anker had out earlier this year, and I think the recall started in February. I did do a little short about it, and I will put somewhere on the screen over here what that model number was for the Anker power bank that got recalled because it was starting fires. But because of that, there are some airlines I have heard rumored. Now, I couldn't find in my research any specific information about this, but it has been rumored that there are some airlines that aren't allowing you to have any portable chargers on their planes. So you might want to check with your airline that you are flying with to make sure that they haven't put the kibosh on portable chargers. Now, most planes these days do have plugins, and they have USB ports that you can plug into, or old school plugs that you can plug your block into so that you can charge your items while you're flying. But there are some older planes that still don't have them, and it would be really nice to be able to have a portable charger. Because they change the plane so often for each flight, you're not really going to be able to know ahead of time if your plane is going to have that capability or not. I mean, that's one of those sticky wicket, tips. Unfortunately, I don't have a good resolution for you except to check with your airline before you leave on that trip to see if you can bring that portable charger with you. Number 20 is going to be a little heartbreaking to some of you guys, and that is you can't save money buying alcohol on the plane by bringing your own. Even if you get the alcohol through TSA security by putting your little tiny airplane bottles in your liquids bag, once you get through security, because security doesn't care if you're carrying alcohol in your liquids bag or not, but the airline cares a lot that you're not going to be able to drink that alcohol on that plane. They have had so many issues with drunken disorderliness. Ooh, that's a hard word to say. Drunken disorderliness over the past couple of years that they are really tamping down on alcohol consumption on the planes. So just know that even if you buy the alcohol in the airport or you bring it with you, you cannot drink outside alcohol on the plane. You'll have to pay out the nose for that Bloody Mary on the plane. For a more uplifting tip, tip number 21, if you find yourself in an airport due to a long delay or a cancellation of your flight, you should look at using one of the lounges. And you might say, but Christy, I don't have access to the lounges through my credit card or through my points with my airline. Well, I have good news for you, and that is that most lounges will let you pay a flat fee to come in and use their facilities. And it's usually somewhere between $50 and $60. Now, you might say, oh my God, that's so expensive. But by the time you start thinking about how much you're going to pay for a meal in that airport and maybe a drink or two, plus you're still stuck out in the airport where all the chaos is happening, it's kind of worth the $50 or $60 per person to go in and get all the drinks that you want to drink, free food, a much more peaceful environment to hang out in, and sometimes access to showers, clean bathrooms. Some of them even have yoga space and workout spaces. So it is something to consider if you get stuck at an airport for a really long time. Now, some of them might limit the number of hours that you're allowed in there, but I don't know. For me, even 2 to 4 hours of peace from the chaos in an airport, if I'm having to spend 8 hours on a layover somewhere, it's well worth $60 to me anyway. And back to talking about drinking on the plane, tip number 22 is all about the fact that most airlines are going contactless when it comes to making payments for food and beverages on the plane. That means they do not want to handle your credit card. They have long since not taken cash on a plane. So what you are going to have to do is, usually when you are checking in for your flight, they will give you the option of inputting a credit card number that you would then be able to use on the plane if you want to buy a snack or a meal or a Bloody Mary. Or a glass of wine. I mean, those are kind of my two go-to airplane drinks, in case you wanted to know. But you will need to put all of that information in before you go for your flight. Otherwise, you may end up in a flight and not be able to buy anything to eat. And if you haven't brought anything with you, you might end up getting super hangry by the end of that flight. So make sure you check it out. Again, that's another good reason to have your airlines app downloaded on your phone too. And now for tip number 23, my favorite tip, and one that I really don't think is being used by all that many people. And that is, if you are coming back from traveling overseas and you do not have global entry, you need to download the Mobile Passport Control app. This could save you hours of standing in the customs line when you are returning to the United States. Like I said, I have global entry, so I have never used this app, but my understanding is it is a huge, huge time saver. Check that out. Like I said, everything is in the description below. And that is my 23 travel tips for you for this year. Let me know what your travel tips or travel news is for 2023. If something new has happened for travel that you're seeing when you're out there flying around, let us know in the comments below. Share all of the information, because the more we know, the less stress that will be when we travel. If you happen to be new to air travel, or perhaps you just haven't traveled by air for a really long time, then this video over here is probably a good one for you to watch next. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.